So, yeah, it's recording. So yeah, that was fun, or maybe not, but I guess that is a good reminder not to tweet meeting URLs. We had similar issues early in last year, so I guess it's school holiday summer. I still remember all this fun from my Freenode days. You could always tell when you had school holidays summer, because people started doing exactly this kind of thing. Anyway, let's do actual work. And sorry for everyone who's now only watching the recording. We had some interesting code of conduct violations just a second ago. But let's do work. So first point of order, we were asked to adapt our governance. While there is currently nothing in the actual requirements, still, there was an ask to not have a self-appointed benevolent dictator for life. That governance change has been made. That is in pull request number 2, and I would ask you to confirm it. I see Brian already did confirm it.
Yeah, and just suggested adding a comma.
Yeah, I saw.
Suggestion.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Like, it still makes sense either way. I think it's just a little cleaner that way.
Yeah, okay, can do. No worries. We'll do after. The one thing to point out, which is important in the change, and that has already been, like I already talked about this with TOC and with SIG governance, if my memory serves me right. I'm really bad with names, as you know. There is now a provision of alignment with Prometheus, Cortex, and Thanos, which is standing before everything else in the governance, and also to change alignment away from the Prometheus project, we would need unanimous agreement from all open observability team members, which is the initial reason to have the self-appointed benevolent dictator for life thing, and now we're just replacing that protective function with a statement of alignment. So I guess we already have consensus on this one, but again, please note that in the actual PR. Just a moment. Sorry. So the next one, IETF update. I got quite some feedback out of band, but not on the mailing list for whatever reason. Well, people were concerned and basically had imposter syndrome, where, as far as I'm aware, IETF lists actually encourage people to post. Anyway, we should be putting in more rationale and pros about what this actually means, where it's coming from, how much adoption it has. I know we already have verbiage in the intro section, but we should be putting in more. Also, I was asked to put other numbers, like, for example, that the client Golang is the 29th most used library in Go on Earth, blah, 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 blah. Like all those adoption numbers to just strengthen the case, which that this is basically documenting existing and widely adopted consensus, and not trying to do something from scratch. Also, I registered for IETF 110, and in the scope of AWG or Apps AWG, I'll be talking about this effort and about standardization, to just reply to any questions which there might be. Yeah. Oh. Then we have FAQ updates. I do think we need to expand the FAQ quite a bit, just to carry over the most common questions. I can also link to the TOC explainer, which I did, I think, a month ago, also about like differences and alignment with OpenTelemetry, OpenMetrics, blah, 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 blah. maybe a little bit of
where is this FAQ? Which one are you referring to?
It should, in the end, live in the OpenMetrics repository.
Okay.
We do a little bit of verbiage already, or medium bit of verbiage, but should put in more, because we keep getting the same question, which makes sense to expand this. I am also tempted to just put in a timeline of sorts and everything, just to enable people to onboard themselves more quickly, because historically we didn't do a super great job of this. And while obviously we can argue that it's basically just Prometheus reference code anyway, it just makes sense to have that in one single place. So I would try and get a lot more content in there. On the same at the same time, also looking at the internet draft and like seeding the two from each other.
Yeah, I think a separate FAQ makes sense. I'd be wary of just going full FAQ inside the infinite draft, because that's not what that's for.
No. That's outside of the actual specification. For inside the specification, it's about strengthening the case for yes, this is an actually widely adopted organic standard. For outside the specification, it is about basically walking through all the things, also linking to the other resources we have. Explainers of context. I know that quite a bit is in the consideration section of the actual specification, but experience has shown that people don't read that section. So it just makes sense to distill it down into an FAQ style thing, to just make it more easily accessible. Yeah. And that is more or less it already. We're at AOB.
Well, I had one item just from reviewing the circular exemplary storage one in Prometheus. Callum asked the question that, hey, it's not pointed out that timestamps of exemplars should increase over time across expositions, which, we can probably just make that as an explicit line. But that's like the only thing I've noted that, hey, that might be a little bit clearer inside the docs. Like everything else is pretty clear.
That is, yeah. Okay, I don't have that section in my head, but yes, if that's the case, then absolutely we should strengthen that one. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Because we cover timestamps generally, but not for exemplars. But I like it was obviously so obvious to me I didn't even think of mentioning it, unlike everything else, which is so obvious to me when I mentioned it anyway.
Obvious is a dangerous word, because what's obvious to one person might not be obvious to another person. And yeah, so yeah, we'll just put it in. It's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah, for anything else? I mean, this is a super short one because we did basically release. We can maybe, for people watching this, those two bits and pieces might be interesting. So this is basically me repurposing this call for general information. So within the context of Prometheus, Björn presented his high-resolution histogram proposal. We can also link this from the notes so people can find it after. That is way too early to actually really do anything about within OpenMetrics proper. Yet it's currently being proposed and discussed. The other piece of information which is relevant for people watching this on YouTube is that there is now a Prometheus working group within OpenTelemetry, where we are actively working on basically aligning OpenTelemetry so it is 100% OpenMetrics and Prometheus compatible, and just walking through all the issues and trying to help where we can by either adapting, explaining, whatever, to just see that those efforts are compatible.
Yeah, like reading through Bjorn's proposal, it's reasonably high level. It's not much adding much more. As someone who's been following his presentations and whatnot over the years, it's just writing them all down largely. There's some new stuff in there. That's obviously still a while away. The one thing that just kind of stood out to me from an OpenMetrics standpoint is how does this work with the text format? Because I think in terms of long-term adoption, OpenMetrics is always going to have text. That worked out really well for Prometheus, and just making sure that there's an answer there.
I think it's too early to really have text format answers here. The intention of Björn is to do this in proto more than in text, which for the exploratory phase seems to make sense. But this is way before the point where it actually matters in the official standardization of the wire format. So currently, it's the intention is to not even have this in a feature flag or anything, but literally just carry branches per sub-project and just implement it there, test it there, see how it works. And once it's reasonably stable and battle-proven, then and only then actually look at officially formalizing, standardizing, blah, 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 blah. So I wouldn't expect this to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I just have the general concern that we accidentally end up with 2 de facto standards, or well, 2 standards, however you count it.
No, so from the Prometheus side, the intention is and remains that that OpenMetrics is the format which Prometheus supports as the one single thing once things become stable. While it's in experimental phase, everything goes. It's like, again, it's not even the feature flag, it's literally a branch at the moment, or the intention is to have the branches. Some are there already. So yeah. It feels as if this one is super short, but on the other hand, we had our little incident. We don't have guests due to the little incident, and we're more or less in maintenance and incremental improve mode at the moment anyway. So one thing which I need to do is actually figure out what's happening on the Prometheus calendar, because there are at least 2 different calendars. And I publish both the Prometheus Dev Summit and the OpenMetrics Dev Summit in the Prometheus community calendar, which I thought was the reference, but it apparently is not. But I don't see the real calendar in my Prometheus IO account, so I don't know what's happening there, and that needs to be fixed. And also I need to be figuring out how to protect against those future occurrences, because what I just saw in Google Meet as protections was abysmal in comparison to what Zoom has. I know that Google for Education has all the bells and whistles which we would need, but apparently that's not the case for the business version, or enterprise version, which is not good. Let's phrase it as not good. And with that, we're at time anyway, or 2 minutes before at time. So yeah, to anyone watching this, sorry, this didn't work out as nicely as we had planned. For the next one, it'll be better. And please join the next one and try and be part. Cool. See you, everyone.
See you.